Project Ultimate Life's
podcast.
You'll find a name. You'll find a name for it.
Yeah, cool. All right, so welcome to episode 1 of Project Ultimate Life's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about morning routines. We're going to do this in a very super casual setting, as this is number 1. And as you know, you always get better with time, and practice makes perfect, or close to. So we are going to be talking about morning routines in a very conversational format. We have our friend Hasan here, who is an awesome human being, a personal trainer, a rugby coach, what else do you do? Tell us.
I like to give advice and try to take my own advice.
Professional advice giver.
There you go.
Would that be a consultant?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I get paid for it.
Cute.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, well, that being said, let's just kind of get into it. So, morning routines. What do we know about it?
So, I think we'll touch on it later, but for me, it's always, I think we've had this conversation the night before, and I know we'll get to that. I think how people start their morning is a very interesting one of how they deem their day has gone. You know, so not necessarily every single thing they have done in a bigger picture, but it has a knock-on effect of how they talk to people, how they have a relationship later on that day, how they deal with any stresses that come that way. If they've had what they deem a productive morning, which again I think we're going to touch on.
Mm-hmm. We have heard a lot about morning routines on social media, YouTube, for like the last 10 years especially. Before then, I don't think it was as big of a kind of conversation until people really started getting how much those small kind of habits and behaviors could really impact the rest of your day. And what is life? Life is just a series of days which add up to a series of weeks, which add up to a series of years, which is our life, right? So if you have a really good day every day, or as close to, whether that's productivity or whether that's just feeling good because you felt accomplished, at the end of the life, essentially you feel all of those feelings about your life, right? And I know that's a strong statement since it's just the morning routine and it's such a small thing, but how easy is it to have a morning routine? I know that I've been an employee. I had to start work at 6:45 in the morning. That wasn't easy. I tried various different things. I trained for a half Ironman during that time and tried to get my workout in and tried to do all of these things, and I never found it easy. I still don't. I feel like I've tried every single kind of habit structure from 30 minutes to 3 hours in the morning, following Robin Sharma, following a lot of the people who really preach morning routine, and I still find it difficult to hold myself accountable without sort of that extrinsic motivation of kind of having a friend to meet up with, or having, now being an entrepreneur, that extrinsic motivation of having your job. So the time that I'm actually getting up each day varies, and some weeks I'm like on it, I'll be at 5, I'll be 6:30, and then there'll be that day that now it's suddenly 7:30 or 8, and it kind of throws me off for a few days because maybe we were up late at a friend's house for dinner, or like whatever is going to be the reason or the excuse that night before it was a late night. So that's kind of been my experience with morning routines and evening routines. I feel like if I plan it out the night before, the morning is simple. If I write out the exact steps that I'm going to do in my journal, I actually follow through. I will get up, I will practice going from my bed to the living room, to where I'm going to read, to where I'm going to meditate, to where I'm going to do this. And as long as I do that the night before, I'll actually follow through with it. But if I don't do that, then my morning brain says, press the snooze, and I don't necessarily get up. Often, yes, but sometimes no. So this has just been my experience to kind of let everyone, the audience, know, as well as you guys, my good friends.
Can I just quickly jump in and ask you 2 questions?
Sure,
and
sure.
then I really want to get into the month you had doing, obviously 5 a.m, right? Like exercise specific stuff. One, how much of that is down to the person you are, right? In terms of if it is written down, you will stick to it. And then the second question, which I think is probably more important for everyone, is how much adaptability is there within that morning routine as your life progresses, regresses, different things come in and out of your life? Because as I said, you then create a structure where you either succeed or you fail. And that's kind of what you don't want to have. You want it to flow, right? Like you want to wake up and have this routine that is aiding you in whatever you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be times that you don't achieve it. And if you get to a point where you have it written down and you don't achieve X, Y, and Z by X time, what's the knock-on effect of that?
Right.
We'll go into it, like I'm sure, as I said, as episodes go on, you'll touch on different basics, but especially now with technology, we're almost creating more anxiety by knowing more information. One being sleep, for example, which we'll touch upon. We're almost creating a sleep anxiety because we haven't got X amount of sleep that we deem to be perfect. That's my devil's advocate opinion.
We actually met this lawyer named Diana, was it? Where she's been traveling all over, doing all these different things, and she said, yeah, she was very familiar with the morning routine, but she didn't like how much pressure it put on her to kind of stick with that.
Yeah.
So that made me reflect and start thinking, okay, so there's various versions based on different times. When I was training for a half Ironman, I had to get up and I had to get that workout in, otherwise my coach was like, that I didn't, and then I had to do 2 a day. So I knew that either it didn't get done in the morning or there was no way I was going to do. So again, external pressure to fulfill this commitment to this goal, and therefore I can do it. Right now it's different. Right now I want to be feeling as good as I possibly can, but also as productive as I possibly can be. And there are things like writing in the morning and reading, like I want to be an author. I want to make sure that I'm consuming the right information all the time, which I am, but habitually, so that I don't have to think, what could I be doing right now? I want to do this, this, and this instead. Does that make sense?
I think morning routines as well are very specific to the person as well. Because, for example, a mother who's already up at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. with a screaming baby probably isn't going to get back up at 5 a.m. or is already up with the screaming baby. So I guess her morning routine and whatever she's going to do looks different to somebody who maybe goes to work at 7 and can get up at that 5 and get their morning routine on. Or like us who are entrepreneurs, like we can dictate what we do and what our day looks like, whereas some other people's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I have a trainer I used to work with back home called Matt, who is quite I don't want to use the word troll, but he's quite provoking on social media. And one of the things he always says is everyone is preaching this 8-hour sleep, 10-hour sleep. He's like, have kids and tell me that. Who's now 45, but is in probably better physical and mental shape than 90% of people out there. And again, it comes with that adaptability, as we mentioned. That it's almost like a spectrum. Here's what I would like to achieve. My perfect scenario is I want to achieve 100% of this list. Realistically, am I happy with 70% of this? And that may be sunlight in the morning, glass of water, and not open my phone, right?
Or a cold shower, because just the cold shower I feel like gets the same results as like a 20-minute run.
Forget it. I'd rather do a half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour and a half, maybe 3-hour run, than get into a cold shower.
It's a funny one. It's I don't want to use trend in terms of this, but it is very much trend at the moment. Cold bath, ice baths. Mm-hmm. I always say that, and as I said, I work with athletes that have competed at World Cup level all the way through to a weekend warrior. If something is going to cause you more stress, but it's meant to relieve stress, just don't do it in the first place. If you get into a cold shower or an ice bath and you're like, just don't do it.
Because it's the effects of the after. It's like,
I 100%
goes from
agree.
like this, like you're and then in the shower, and then you come out, and I think it's the effect that I'm looking for. I personally have found that I'm looking for.
I mean, I can get into an ice bath and not flinch. I enjoy it. But if Jade, for example, has a hard workout and I am forcing her in it, the stress I'm causing on her body counteracts the stress I'm trying to get rid of with the ice bath as such.
I have never taken an ice bath. Lies. I went to the bathhouse in Germany, and the final bath was an ice bath. But on my own, in my own time, I haven't really ever used ice baths.
I mean, I'm more than happy to invite you down to training. We'll have a training, have a plunge after, and see how you get on.
Okay.
I have, in all fairness, when I was training with the national team for basketball, we did some intense training sessions, and I was sore because it was a training session, a game, a training session, a game, and then I was sore because I probably wasn't even used to that sort of training at the time either. And then I did enjoy the ice bath that came afterwards. So I think if you're training really hard and you know it's going to help your muscles because you're already in pain, I think that's different to, oh, I really want to wake up, I'm going to jump in the shower.
I think that's, again, coming back to like morning routines, I think there's an educational piece that, you know, is often left out on this. I always use the example of like a juice cleanse. People sell a juice cleanse, but people don't sell the education of what you should do before a juice cleanse or afterwards to reintroduce food to actually get a benefit from it, whether that is arguably the best thing to do or not. But a morning routine, for example, you know, there's got to be an education piece of why you want to do X and Y. And like, for example, we're both fans of Andrew Huberman, right? He is probably the one person that has really made me go, I'm going to change something that I was set on. Coffee in the morning. I would happily wake up and without even a glass of water, I'd have a caffeinated coffee. I have since changed that to decaf, you know, but again, it's because of the education that came with that, of what I wanted to achieve, the science that was presented, and why that would then make a difference in my life. Tried it, it made no, I didn't fight it. Great, I'll keep that. But without that education, I know off the top of my head, should I be having caffeine first thing in the morning? The answer is no. But did that change? No. Until someone who I respect and is almost like an authority figure coming in.
And showed you the science behind it, which made you understand exactly why.
But even though I knew that, like, I could tell you the science behind it, and I've read the research, but again, I think there is that authoritative coach-like figure. We've had a conversation about why a personal trainer, for example, makes you more accountable to things. It's why I always suggest have a mentor, have a financial aid, have a relationship manager, someone that is an external voice that is, you know, you are paying for sometimes a pair of ears, you know, like, especially in the world now, you're saying there's so much content available to us. If we really wanted to find out, we can go and find out all of this information. But the moment I put money down that I have worked for, and someone is now telling me this, or someone that I respect their opinion and view tells me something I may have already known, it's a different one. Again, morning routines, there is so much out there about what we should and shouldn't do in the morning. It's going to be down to then, one, who's that person giving you that information? What is your relationship like with them? If you appreciate them as a person and you've seen the benefits in them and it might have positively affected you, you're going to do it more likely. But me just going onto, you know, Google and typing in 5 a.m. morning routine and then doing it, okay, even if I do it for 7-10 days, is that really going to be something that I stick to for the rest of my life, unless it's got that personal connection or a coach-like figure?
Going back to what you were just saying, a disconnect I fully believe in. When I was like in my early 20s, I was a public health major, learning all of this stuff that would contribute to living what is now my version of, you know, Project Ultimate Life, happy, healthy lives. And I identified that there is a huge disconnect between what we know as humans and what we do. So you're saying, you know, all this content out there on social media is available, etc., etc. But what is the bridge, besides discipline, that can align the disconnect between what we know and actually what we do?
I think in all aspects, morning routine being one of them, is positive, like, reinforcement. Once I have done something and I have had the benefits of it, it's like it goes up levels in my head of how much I'm actually willing to do, or how much I'm willing to sacrifice for this. Likewise, the same with negative, if not more so with negative. Like, you could tell me that if I jump over that barrier, I'm probably going to hurt myself. I'm still going to look at it and go, oh, until I jump over that barrier, hurt myself, and then I go, yeah, Jess was right. You know, and as humans, for some reason,
And we have to learn the hard way.
we do. And you know, I would love to have the answer. I always say this to people. You know, I'm a coach in everything I do day to day, whether it's, you know, conversations between friends, we're always trying to, you know, evolve each other, or whether that is rugby coaching, PT and S&C, I'm always in a point of coaching. And even the flip side, in my spare time, I go and seek my coaches, right? It's the same though, until I do something, like I said with the decaf. The moment I switched to decaf in the morning, right, I wasn't getting that, even if it was a tiny little slump. Even if it was a placebo and a placebo works, it still works. But it was my experience. So you can give me every one of your experiences. I know Jade's gonna I want to talk about like your experience with exercise in the morning. But unless it's my experience, and unless I have created that love, hate, excitement, blood flow, goosebumps, whatever, unless I've created that, am I ever going to truly, truly, truly have that connection to it? And this goes on to everything in life: smoking, drinking, exercise, sleep, gambling, any other vice that someone may or may not have. Until someone has had that experience, there's always going to be that disconnect.
What is that intrinsically motivation? So for a lot of times when someone does something so drastically, it's because they definitely want to change something. There's something that's put them so far, and unfortunately we wait until you're so far feeling so rubbish that you need something, anything to get you to a certain place that you want to go or make you feel better.
I can't remember the name of it, but Chris Williamson talks about this paradox. If something is really good in our life, we understand what we did to get there and we will repeat it because we like that dopamine. If something is really bad, we will also change it because we know the effect it's having on us. But if we just go up the scale from really bad to, oh, this is bad, but how bad is it? For example, a job we don't like, but it pays the bills. A relationship we're not happy in, but we're comfortable. A routine we may be in, we know we're not really getting optimum, but I'm okay with it. We never actually change it. And it's this part of our life that is probably, in terms of what we're talking about, the dangerous bit to be in. We won't change this.
I'd like to sleep. You've brought this up multiple times. I heard this all the time. I would have friends in college that would be like, oh no, nothing can disrupt my sleep. And I would just look at them and be like, sleep is not a priority for me whatsoever. I would pull all-nighters, I would stay up late, I would do all of these different things, and my sleep schedule was absolutely wonky and bonkers. And I'm pretty sure that impacted me in ways that I can only imagine now, right? But even over the last decade, I also didn't prioritize sleep until somehow in the last couple of years, I found that if I could get like 7.5 consistently, 7.5 hours of sleep, or 9 hours, 8 somehow I'm a little groggier, so it really is that like full sleep cycle all the way through. My ability to perform cognitively throughout the day was exponentially stronger. I was more alert, I could produce all of these things. And then now when I go back and say I get one night of 6 hours of sleep, I am not the same level of achiever, producer. I'm not quick, I'm not as emotionally stable, and it really, really does impact me. But it wasn't until I got consistency with experiencing the gains of sleep that I then, with just 1 or 2 days, experienced the loss. So when it comes to the morning routine, something that I've now come up with is, or like come to face, is because sleep, I see such value in sleep now, whereas I didn't see that before. It's, do I wake up at 5 and not get enough sleep, or do I get the full amount of sleep but I didn't get to bed early? So now it's a different kind of battle than it was before. Before it was just not enough sleep and I'm not getting up at 5, or I guess at that time I needed to get up at 4 to get the morning done. And there was a period that I experienced success in that, and I was excited about it, where I was part of the 4 a.m. club, which I think is the rest of the world's 5 a.m. club because of how early we start work here. But yeah, so it's like a whole different battle now. But what is more important? For me, sleep is more important, and this unification of knowing how important sleep is and knowing how much more successful I am when I have a routine in the morning. This is where I'm at now, is uniting those so that I get both the benefits of the sleep and the benefits of the routine and the evening routine, which is exponentially most important. This is where I've now started meditating, journaling, and writing a letter about my 5 years from now future of how grateful I am for the reality that hasn't manifested yet. Which they say, if you do it before you go to sleep, that's the last thing kind of in your brain, so your brain solves problems and can kind of like help you support your any kind of unknowns or questions about what you want in your sleep cycle. I don't know
Isn't
if
it
that's true,
interesting how you didn't realize how important sleep was until you started prioritizing sleep, and so now you're all the way up here, you're no longer in the middle. When you do something that is so drastic and it puts you up there, and now you know what it feels like to get your 7.5, 8.5, 9 hours sleep, and now anything below that you're like, that's not good enough anymore. So whereas before you would be able to come down here and it still be fine because you were only used to this, well now you're used to this, so coming even to here isn't good enough.
Okay, can I ask you a question based on this? And this is where this constant search for optimization comes in, right? And again, with that comes anxiety, right? Well, what happens when we don't achieve it? For example, right? You were a fully functioning person before.
But was she functioning to optimize?
Hold on, let me finish, right? Optimal is one thing, right? How often are humans genuinely meant to be optimum is a whole nother conversation, right? But say you now get 9 hours sleep. And listen, I'm a pro sleeper. I want to sleep, right? When you get 6 hours, why is it you can't get your optimum? Is it because of the sleep, or is it your perception of, I used to get this and I feel like this, but now I've got this, so this has to go down?
Oh, I can tell you, it's the symptoms.
But don't get me wrong, I'm just playing devil's advocate here because there's science for and against. For example, in exercise, we know that once you hit more than 7.5, 8 hours sleep, you are somehow less likely to get injured. We know when it comes to looking after your body and composition and weight loss, for example, we know that once you get 7.5, 8, 9 hours sleep, you have more willpower to make better choices, decisions that will help your goal.
Why are we air quoting that?
Because, as I said, and this is my next point, take Garmin with a body battery, take Whoop with a colour scale. If I open my phone in the morning and it says, I'm in the red recovery, how much does that affect my recovery compared to it saying it was green or me not looking at it? How much does my body battery and my
Well,
Garmin...
you'd make better, not better choices, but better informed choices.
Hear me out. If my watch says I didn't sleep enough, my recovery is only on 20%, my watch is telling me this, right? How much does that make me think for the next 24 hours, oh, actually, I can't do this, I'm only on 20% body battery? I heard a quote the other day that I found really interesting, right? We all love data. Not all of us use all of the data, but we love data now. Everything has got a measure. Okay, when I go out for a run, I measure my run. Whether I have a goal or not, I measure it, right? And I do this. And the guy said, my dog doesn't wear any wearables. My dog doesn't wear anything trackable. But when I'm running with my dog is having a good time. And if we go fast, my dog has a good time. And if we go slow, my dog has a good time. And if I didn't do the 10K and the PB, my dog still has a good time. Why have we now decided that I'm going to dictate my happiness on a measurement? And my question to you is from a sleep point of view. And as I said, I am someone that thoroughly, my phone goes in sleep mode. And I'll get into why I do it after, but why is it if I get 6 hours sleep now, or you get 6 hours sleep now, you feel like you're not optimal, even though in a previous chapter of your life, you were doing that constantly?
Yeah, but that didn't mean I was optimal.
How are you judging optimal now?
How I feel. Do I feel the happiest version of myself?
But the goal has changed.
Happy, not necessarily happy. Do I feel like I can emotionally regulate better? I think that sleep and emotional regulation is huge.
Yeah.
For me.
And we know, especially with different stages of your menstrual cycle, you need that, right? As I said, one thing about like being a woman, which is a superpower, is if you have a regular menstrual cycle, you are more likely to be healthy, right? The first sign of not being healthy for a woman is, well, one of the signs is my cycle's off. You know, that's a very big indicator for you, and sleep is going to obviously be part of that.
But also focus. So I struggled, I would say, all through my 20s and even early 30s with focus. Like I'd get into something, I couldn't find flow, I was distracted, this, that, and the other. But once I prioritized sleep, my ability to focus, my ADHD, when I say this, but my ADHD, I was able to kind of control more with my ability to just actually sit down and produce for long periods of time without my brain constantly skipping, jumping.
Okay, let me. I'll give you my experience with it, and then I'll see if there's a similarity, right? For me, nothing productive in my life happens after 9 p.m.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
I have had many a late night with Jade where we've been out and we've been drinking this, that, and the other, and I might not be optimal or at my best version of myself the next day, right? So I made a decision that if I want to be healthier, if I want to start my own business with schools, if I want it to be taken with higher respect from my peers, there's certain elements of my life I had to cut out. Now, naturally then, if I'm not out drinking 9, 10, 11, 12 p.m, if I'm not up clubbing till 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to replace that with sleep. So is it the sleep, or is it the fact that I'm not doing X and Y and Z?
It's probably a combination.
It's a combination, right? So
Yeah. But
again,
even late nights now, since I cut out alcohol, even late nights now, I still am not my best self the next day. I think it probably has a lot to do with the time you go to bed, so the regularity of your circadian rhythm, the cycle that you go through. So my body, when I'm on a good routine, knows that at about 7:55, 8 o'clock, it's time to start winding down. My body tells me that. And then by 9, I can just fall asleep.
Yeah.
But when I have these erratic sleep schedules, which is actually how I have felt recently, then I go to bed at night at 9, and I'm up and wired until what now my body has deemed 10:30 or 11.
Okay, I'm going to throw a big spanner in the works then. Everything we're saying is, again, the book, How We Sleep, it comes from this, right? Matthew Walker was on Diary of a CEO a couple of weeks ago talking about all this. A couple of weeks later, Stephen Bartlett had another guest on. There is now research to show that if you do have a 6-hour sleep cycle, okay, and you try to get that 9-hour sleep cycle, it's actually worse for you.
Because your body naturally wakes.
You are naturally in this routine now.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, this whole push on we're trying to get our optimum version of ourselves, I think there is also part of this part of my life, this is optimal. At that part of my life, that is optimal. And again, I talk to clients about this when we're talking about like meal preps, for example. You know, if you are going to step on stage and do a bodybuilding show, which I have done, you need to eat X and Y, and you need to eat at this time to get the best results. That has also put me in a situation where I'm in a restaurant bringing out my Tupperware and asking them for cutlery or asking them to heat something in the microwave, which then had a negative effect on a relationship.
I just thought that was me in college.
But this is what I'm saying, that's a period of my life that I was happy to do that. The goal was to step on stage. Other things were happy to take a back step, you know, for better or worse. Sleep is the same. You doing all-nighters to achieve X and Y in school, college, uni, that was part of it. You know,
Part of what? Sorry.
that was part of you achieving what you did. You did the all-nighter. If you tried to do a 9-hour sleep then, you may have done better, you may have not have. We don't know, but that was what you deemed you did, or you needed to do at that part of your life. And that's a common thing we see with students anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so...
Yeah, but that's because there was so much fun happening the couple nights before that you had no choice but doing that.
But
And
isn't
that's
that
like
part
the
of the
ability-
experience as well?
Yeah,
For example,
I'm
I went to uni
not-
older and I didn't have that, and I don't now have the same positive impression of university, and that comes across in how I speak to people, how I advise people. Likewise, take business. I always use the example of smoking, right? I was having a conversation with a fellow trainer the other day who is trying to get one of their clients to stop smoking, and I have said, why do you want that person to stop smoking? And she instantly hit me with health benefits. I said, okay, but what benefits is smoking bringing to that person's life? For example, when she's at work and she has a very high pressure environment job and she needs to get away from the office, she goes downstairs and has a cigarette break. Actually, it has stopped her eating, snacking unnecessarily, and we see that when people do stop smoking, they replace it with food, causes other issues, right? So, okay, is smoking the healthiest thing you can do? No, of course it isn't. But is that getting rid of that going to have a positive impact straight away? Is there going to be a learning process in that? That person is in a certain part of their life. Can they afford, from a work point of view, to have that negative? I know we always talk about the alcohol one as well. How many good conversations have you had around alcohol that have led to a business meeting or another opportunity that I myself found that as I said, when I decided to cut my drinking, I just took myself away from these environments. There's actually a lot of conversations that I've missed out on.
But how great would it have been if you still put yourself in those environments, but just was able to remember them because you were so
No,
motivated?
100%. There's a balance. What I'm saying is there's a balance, right? And that's going to come with that individual. The example of the mum. You know, you can, and the example of as my friend back home, Matt.
It is, and I totally agree with having like these low moments and those high moments, because without those low moments, how do you know you're having a high moment? And with those high moments, like you really want to enjoy them, and I think even little steps of celebrating those little successes of getting up there even are really powerful. And actually there is huge research that, well, you don't get extra dopamine from going down here all the way up here, you get just as much from here to here. So celebrating those little successes to get up there. But the point is that how do you know you're up here if you've never understood what being down here is?
Yeah, and then once you get up there, how do you maintain that? Because as soon as, like, I don't want to say I, but as soon as you go back down, you're like, oh, I gotta get back there.
Yeah, well,
Scrabble,
you
scrabble.
never want to be back there
Yeah.
again, do you? That's why then your expectation for yourself and your level of where you want to be is going to be continuously going up, because every time you go down a little, you're not really going to fall as hard.
And I also think it depends on the environment. Look at Michael Jordan was quoted to say that one of the reasons why he thinks he had such a successful career and such a prolonged career with setbacks is because he didn't ride the wave of emotion how others did. When they won, he didn't celebrate massively, but when they lost, he also didn't find himself in the hole massively. He said he found that nice neutral bit. Compare someone like Dennis Rodman, who was on the team, who was this absolute party animal, but also probably had the low crashes, but not both as successful in basketball, but you know, success in different realms. So I think again that's going to come to how well you can get out of that. You know, my impression of where I have been rock
What are we
bottom.
going to get out of the rock bottom?
For example, my impression of where I have deemed rock bottom, I remember sitting there going, one, I don't like this feeling, so I'm gonna react good to it. I'm also very thankful that I got out of that. How many people don't get out of that? So actually living that Michael Jordan life of, yeah, I'm not gonna massively celebrate the highs, but also now I'm not gonna, you know, take the lows as hard. There's a benefit for that as well, I think. Which is again, you look at male suicide rate in the UK. How many people get low, for whatever reason it is, whether it's a vice or not, right? How many people get low and never come back from it? So actually, there's a lot to be said about, yes, I think you should celebrate little wins, that's my philosophy, it's how I coach, but also, what is the bigger picture with it? I think in the physio realm, it's a real interesting one as well. If I'm working with a client that is coming back from injury, and they have a setback, I can't allow myself to be emotionally involved in that setback, because that person is looking to me to bring them back up. So in that environment, I'm also going to do the same with the tops. Yeah, I'm really happy you're there, but let's keep you there. And that's a real funny one as a coach, for example, on a sporting level where, you know, you win, great, I've still got the next game to think about. If I celebrate this too much, I'm actually losing sight of what I'm not working on within that game to help me with that one.
I think Kobe Bryant is a great example of that. Even when there was wins, that he was still up at the same time the next morning, getting in the same practices as he was before the win, and it was always, you're always looking for the next one.
Sleep's a real interesting one because there's
Go on the topic.
as I said, all you have to do is mention the mum or a sportsman or a student, and all of a sudden you have completely different lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
Is that now the most appropriate? You know, Michael B. Jordan, for example, he's a very, very successful now, right? He puts his success down to when he was younger, he sacrificed what everyone else was doing because he knew he wanted it then, not now. James Milner, a very famous footballer in the UK, is exactly the same. He said he would drink after his career. So he has gone his whole career, and he is notoriously known for being the fittest player at Liverpool every pre-season, and now he's in his mid-30s, and he is still beating all these young cats coming through. But he has said, I'm willing to sacrifice X and Y around this part of my life to have it later on.
Cool. Love that.
But again, it's just different for different people. And I think as a coach, the more people I work with, the more I learn, and the more I realise I don't know. Because the moment I work with someone with a different, environment, but even that, if I have two people in front of me that are exactly the same life, A works for this, A doesn't work for this, so I think you have to be prepared to also be wrong. I think that we talk about like routines and stuff a lot, and we like to evaluate what we have done in the past, and you have to accept that, okay, when I was 18, I thought this was right. When I was 22, my mentor said to me, you are good at what you do, imagine if you were sober. Because I partied so much. But my argument to that was, look how many meetings and look how many contacts I have made in this environment. I would go out after a corporate wellness event, for example, and all of a sudden bump into 3 more HR managers, and then that next week, I'm having business conversation with them 3 HR managers. And that was part of my persona at the time, that's part of my selling technique at the time. Would I be able to do that now? No. The late night, the booze, probably the food, as I said, I wouldn't feel like I'm my best version of myself. Is that physiology real, or is that my perception of it also having a big impact?
Also, I don't know any science behind this, but age.
Yeah.
The ability of the body to be able to recoup from the
Do you think that you say you were in these environments and they somehow gave you a leg up and you were able to meet all these people? Do you think in the same scenarios, do you think that you put some people off?
Yeah, 100%. And I was happy with that. I was happy with that perception of, I will do business with people that want to do business with me, and if you don't want to do business with me, we aren't the right people to do business together.
And those people that you did business with, were they the right people to do business with?
In terms of I was corporate running the gym, right? So we were selling health and fitness by not being healthy and not prioritising fitness. I can tell you corporate wellness events I've done for companies, I won't name any companies, but I've organised pub crawls for them as their corporate relation for a gym.
This is in the UK, right?
In the UK, and what happens? They re-signed and more people joined because they liked the environment we created. It wasn't you have to do this all the time, it was
Well, wellness can also be community, right?
It was community, it was balance, it was the stress relief, so, and these are all the things I learned, why they happened as I got older.
I do think there's a change happening right now though. I think back then, pub crawls and drinking lifestyle, I think it's different now. I feel like people are starting to realise that there's more to well-being and there's more that you can do that doesn't necessarily involve drinking.
2 things. One, do you think that's because we're here and not in the UK?
Ooh, no, because my cousin is in the US, and I would have said that there was very much a drinking culture when I was younger. She says that the stuff that she's being around, what she's seeing, what she's learning, her friends, yes, it's still very much a part of life, but she has expressed there being more awareness around the younger generation, or her generation, being aware of, yes, the social benefits of drinking, okay, and also the side effects. So that there's just maybe more awareness or more education or more trendiness in being sober. I don't know, I have a lot of cousins now that are choosing a different lifestyle than, say, a lot of other people based on this just unification through sober is cool. Whereas I feel like the mentality before was you're a stick in the mud if you're not having fun and drinking and doing this stuff.
Definitely in the UK.
Yeah, but look at Friday brunch here though. It's exactly the same, right? You go to any hotel here and all of a sudden it's, it is what it is. I find it interesting that I think I have a strong personality, right? And I embrace that as well, right? That's a USP that I try to use. Likewise, there are some people that don't enjoy that, and I think I've learned a little bit more how to tone that down if needs be. I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable if it's not the detriment to me trying to be someone else, right? But I remember the first time I went, and I've been sober a couple of times, like for big periods of time. And once I learned how to still go out in these situations, the first hour of any party or dinner or boat or trip, what do you mean you're not drinking? Or just one, why? Or you better, like, and then as I think people realised the impact it was having on me in terms of, I'm doing this for me, not to please you, that went away pretty quick. Like, I remember being on boat parties and winning beer pong games whilst drinking non-alcoholic beer. I had better eyesight than everyone, so of course I was going to win. But you know, I think it's such a unique thing. Just to quickly go back on the age thing, again, Stephen Bartlett had Gary Vee on, and Gary Vee, who he's openly said that Stephen Bartlett he's used Gary Vee as a mentor for him, and he's invested in some of his companies. Gary Vee made a point. He was like, I'm so looking forward now to my 50s and 60s to apply what I have learned and what I've created. And they had the conversation, how much of this is natural from age? We have tried to do a lot, right? Like, we have tried to be sober, or a morning routine, or sleep, or exercise. How much of that is just another 12 months on this planet?
Another accumulation of life experience.
Another X amount of people we have interacted with, you know? So there's like I always say, I think as long as you're happy to be proven wrong, live it, take it for what it is, make mistakes. I have a big plaque at home, which I told you about, that says I've learned so much from my mistakes, I'm thinking about making some more. Some people in my life like that, some people don't, but...
Well, I laughed.
Yeah, you know, I think it's that whole, you know, that personal experience again, going back to sleep. I have done 6 months of 9 hours of sleep, or thereabouts. I know how good I feel, I know how productive I can be, and I enjoy that. So then I make a decision. Do I want that, or am I going to consciously go against that, knowing how good it can make me feel now? I use the example of going to a doctor. If I go to a doctor with a broken hand and I say to the doctor, can you fix my hand? And he says, what happened? I said, I took a hammer and I hit my hand and broke it. He says, well, that was silly, but I'll fix it for you this time. Let's not do this again. And then I go back to him 6 months later with a broken hand, and he says, what'd you do? And I say, well, I took a hammer and I hit it. And he'll go, well, that's very silly, because we've had this conversation before. And I go, yeah, but can you just fix it this time? And he goes, all right. And then I go back another 6 months and it's the same scenario, right? Well, that's the same with sleep, and it's the same with food, and it's the same with exercise. If I do something and it makes me feel good, if I don't do that, that's on me now. It's not on you, it's not my friend, it's not on social media, it's not my influence or anything else. That's me making a choice. Do I like how I feel when I do these things? Yes.
Okay, yeah. I gotta add to this. So they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Okay, I can kind of get down on that. However, what is it in the human brain that says, oh, I should do that, oh, negative consequence. But somehow there's enough dopamine around whatever the action is that's going to get you the same negative result, that no matter what the conscious brain tells you, you shouldn't do that, the subconscious, the dopamine, the happy feel-good hormones in your brain are just firing, that don't remember what those consequences are and that lesson was, to then draw and make a person act into something that they shouldn't, that would get them the results they didn't want.
I'm going to give you the analogy of an onion.
Love onions.
Right? As weird as it sounds. On the outside, we have this layer that is very much that. Here is this thing that I'm going to do that is going to have consequences, right? And I know it's negative, but I'm going to do it. Let's use drinking as the example, right? It's quite an obvious one. If I peel back a few layers and I go, okay, but why am I still doing this? Okay, it's the environment I'm in. Okay, well, let me peel back a few more layers. I'm actually more concerned with how I'm going to be viewed by the other people. Okay, let me peel back a few more layers. Actually, I might have had an experience with parents or school where I didn't feel good because I was in an environment where people didn't accept me. Now I'm accepting the social norm. You know, so, and how many people are willing to have that conversation? How many people are willing to go back inside themselves and go, when was I last happy? What was I doing? just me. You know, it's a funny one. If you say to someone in a coaching environment, PT wise specifically, personal training wise, when were you last happy with how you looked, how you felt? What were you doing? Okay, let's just go and do that again. There's so many other factors that have now come in because they've had these personal experiences, be it a relationship that hasn't gone well, or be it the job they didn't get. So when people are willing to be vulnerable and accept that, but also have the right environment to build themselves back up, it's very powerful. When people haven't got that, which is okay, I think that's the other thing. I think you don't want to be too much of a pusher to it. I say to people all the time, not every person out there is made to train with me from a PT point of view. Some people I won't work well with, they won't work well with me. That's okay. There is a million other personal trainers, especially in Qatar. So, but when you get these people that are willing to go deeper, man, you can achieve some amazing things. But we're having a conversation that we've been doing that ourselves with sleep, morning routine, bedtime routine, exercise, you know, like
habits, which is what I want to start talking about next.
But sorry, just one thing. It's one thing to see there is a lot of putting the layers, and there's more emotion attached to it, and there's more reasons until you get to your own human why. But also, more on a basic human level, we always gravitate to getting that next dopamine fix. So going for that drink, you know it's going to make you feel good straight away. Like, doesn't matter. Actually, I won't use the analogy of alcohol for me. I'll use it as chocolate for me, because I'm a huge chocoholic. You know this very well. It's best if I just don't buy it. But I know that after a certain amount of chocolate, I'm going to feel like rubbish, and I'm going to start tearing myself apart about it. But yeah, I still go and hunt for that chocolate and to have that quick dopamine release. And yeah, there is a huge bunch of emotion baggage that probably comes with that. But for the point of why do we keep doing these things, is because we want to get that quick dopamine fix.
I'll challenge you on that. I don't think you found something strong enough to replace it. So we know by routines and habits, there's loads of science done when you're doing something, you can't necessarily end it. You have to replace it with something. And if you replace it with something that isn't as important to you, or isn't bigger, stronger, better, you won't do it, and you'll fall back to that, which is why yo-yo dieting is such a thing. Why people, for example, there was a study done in the US, people can lose weight in the US. People just put on the weight again, and they put on more because they haven't done something sustainable. We had this conversation the other day. I know that when I go to the gym in the morning and when I do X and Y in the morning, it makes me feel good. That positive impact on my life feels better than the positive impact of whatever I was going to do the night before. So I now have a choice to make. Do I want this dopamine or do I want that dopamine? So
yeah,
the
as
chocolate
humans
one,
though,
wnegative you're, well, it's the
it's
same.
discipline. It's 100% discipline.
But that's what I'm saying. You're replacing it with something else. A mutual friend of ours the other day, I went to send her something on Instagram and I couldn't find it. So I messaged her and I said, "Oh, have you deleted it?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I'll tell you something funny. My phone still finds where the app used to be on her phone." So she hasn't replaced it with something. She just got rid of it. So I always say to people when it comes to me coaching food, I would rather look at someone's diet and add things into it before I start taking things away. For example, a lot of people want to lose weight for whatever reason, right? I always get them to add more low dense foods like vegetables into their diet, so they're going to be fuller by eating more. Then I can start tweaking things. If I just go, here's a restriction, humans for some reason, we have this
Yeah, don't tell me what to do.
100%. I think the study was done, I think Huberman said about this, the study they did in rats, for some reason always rats, but they did a maze to get to food.
The closest thing to humans.
So they did a maze to get to food, and when they changed where the food was, they kept doing the same route. Einstein's definition of insanity. They kept doing the same thing until they find where the food is. But the moment they removed the food from the second location, they went back to the first one. So you can revert back to
old habits
unless you create a strong enough new habit. So in the example of a morning routine, and I think you obviously found this when you were doing your run, right? Just because you do something for 30 days or whatever, you still need other things. Otherwise, you'll just revert back to
Yep, old habits.
old habits.
Yeah,
And
and
that's how it is.
creating new habits is really difficult. But I mean that's what I why do you choose 5 a.m. and isn't it really hard? Yeah, it's really hard. But how hard was it to learn to read the first time?
Yeah.
How hard was it to learn a new language the first time? How easy is it now? Do you know what I mean? Like the whole point is to continue until it's no longer as hard. It's still gonna be.
I always use the example of humans. Until you see humans at our age crawling around the floor, at some point they started to walk, they fell down.
Yeah.
But at no point did they go, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, I accept this, I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life, right? It's, we evolve into that. So until I meet someone that comes to me in a gym or on the field and says, I'm crawling there firstly, and I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh yeah, I decided this is me. I'm gonna be like, okay, we can change habits, but you have to find something that you enjoy more. You have to find that positive reinforcement that is you are creating a bigger emotional attachment to. Take rehab. Sport rehab, you get back to the sport. Life rehab, for example, like if Joe Bloggs goes and gets injured, how often do they ever get back to their full physical performance? Because they don't have anything that they really want to get to that's going to give them that bigger dopamine. Whereas from a sport point of view, we know getting back to the pitch or court or that championship game or winning is such a bigger dopamine hit that we're looking for. We will do the work in rehab. Make sense? I go back to sport a lot because obviously it's what I've worked in most, well,
Yeah,
more
and
than
I'm
I haven't.
made of glass, so I'm constantly in rehab.
But you're constantly trying to get back.
Yeah.
At no
Because
point.
I know what it's like to be up there.
But
that's the
that's
point.
it.
And that's the point of, if you don't know what it feels like to be up there, you will always stay here and think that that's normal. So I guess my point of that analogy is that you never know how far you can go until you just keep pushing yourself and getting to that furthest point. I think that's right.
Except James Smith counters that with, I've never tried heroin. He's
Yeah.
like, I don't need to try it to know.
Yeah.
I've never tried jumping off a bridge without anything. Do you know, like that's just a stupid analogy. Like that's just obvious. Okay, you're gonna plummet
Why
and
is it
die.
obvious?
Have you? Okay, interesting. Have you ever heard of a really successful heroin addict?
Would you hear of them, or would you hear
That
of
has
people
given
that
up?
they died?
I'm sure there's some that have given up. I mean, you can look at most.
No. I'm just literally saying, like, when you say, yeah, I never tried heroin, but have we ever heard of those best case scenarios where, like,
Yeah, fair.
oh, he's the president, he's on heroin, like, we aspire to be like him, you know? I've just never heard
We
this.
have nothing to compare it to.
Right, there's no, like, going back to what you said, we were watching this course the other day, and one of the quotes were, everything that you find easy today, you once found hard.
Yeah.
So kind of supporting, what you were saying, like, the more we try, the more we practice, the more we do, the easier the things get, and then as long as we keep progressing or keep practicing or keep shedding those layers of onions of, self-doubt and fear and whatever, anything that we try to do, as long as we stick to it with consistency, eventually we can adopt that mindset.
I think
Habit,
every single
behavior.
person in the world should do some sort of resistance training, right? One of the reasons is this. You understand a concept of, I will not, if I go into the gym and do a session and walk out, I'm not going to get the results there. So I instantly understand there's a long-term effect I'm looking for, right? Also, I have to apply progressive overload to it. Also, what once was hard now becomes my warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many other contexts to the gym that I can put forward that has real life implements.
Analogies, right? My basketball coach in high school, he always used to say, basketball is an analogy for life, Basketball is a game of runs. Like, that's kind of what it is. Like, oh, you find success, boom, 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 and then the run will switch to the other side, and then you fall backwards, and then you'll get yourself back together, recoup, and then you'll,
When life knocks you down, do a burpee.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I think the best one with like life and routines that I heard, I can't remember if this was on probably Stephen Bartlett. He said Think of it as you have 24 chips, okay, and you're going to play blackjack. And your day is that every single day you get 24 chips given to you, and you can spend them chips doing whatever you want, however you want.
Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah. If you want to put 8 of those chips, a third of those chips into sleep, do it. If you want to put 2 of those chips into meal prep, do it. You know, and you'll see the return.
Interesting.
You'll see the return based on whatever you do.
I love that. I went to a sustainability conference in Switzerland, and there were these university students that we were couch surfing with that had a display there, and it was about sustainability and energy consumption, and you had to take basically these rings and put it on where do you think you suspend the most energy. It was like driving cars, transportation, plane flights, eating meat, just everything else that would be harmful for the environment, etc. And one block on a plane flight was more of the toxins, pollutants, etc., harmful for the environment than every other little behavioral impact for the year that I could add up. So I was like, if I gave up one plane flight, I would have done my part for everything else. For now, obviously that's not sustainable. We're still going to want to fly places, but the visual was super powerful. So I love this idea of the 24 token effect. Perhaps it could be a strategy that we use, where you can each day think about how am I going to put what where, and apply your tokens to the things that either bring you value, bring you wellness,
Well, I think
massage.
a good workshop that you guys could take forward, definitely using this, right, is your first part of it would be, okay, what returns would you put on a good night's sleep? What returns would you put on food?
Like
what
ROI
returns?
kind of thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once you have them, they basically would create their shopping list or their gambling list almost, right? Then you give them the chips and you say, okay, where would you put your chips? And then you bring out their return of investment form and you work out how many chips at the end of the day they then finish with. And for example, people will put socializing on with nothing in return. Okay, well, they lose them.
Well, no, they get something in return.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is they would put, I'm using it as an example, they would put whatever they feel their return of investment would be. Because as I said, like going back to the beginning, it doesn't matter what I say. If you have a different opinion, you're going to stick to it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Socializing is super important.
Yeah.
no, don't get me wrong.
Part
I'm
of
just
human
using an example
interaction.
of how
And-
powerful that visual could be.
And I think who you're socializing with, is it networking events where you're meeting people of like-mindedness that'll help you expand and grow, maybe in your business or life or personal, or is it putting yourself around toxic people? That would be a negative return on your social time.
Toxic people, yes, but friends, just to be friends and just to chill and talk about, well, nothing, is a way of, it's someone's way of relaxing.
No,
and that's
100%.
really important. If you are so focused on in other areas of your life, like exercise and business, you need sometimes an outlet that isn't about those things. It's completely, that's a relaxation.
So this is
Super important.
my point then on that first thing I said is, are humans meant to be optimal all the time? I use the example you when we met up the other day. I had a couple of down days, and when I say down days, I mean I put my laptop down, I let my phone stay on silent, and I just chilled out. And I didn't feel guilty for it at all. I was like, is this the most productive I can be? Physically, for work, my business, my bank account? No. For me, this is what I need right now.
Yeah.
But it has also taken me a long time to then get to, I'm okay with this, I don't feel guilty, I'm not now going to get up at 4 a.m. to do extra work.
Yeah.
I just got back into my routine after.
Well, and Jade and I were talking about this the other day. Like, when you've worked really hard, that 1 or 2 days to unplug feels amazing. But when 1 or 2 days turns into 3 or 4 or 5, then the
You're
balance,
building a new habit.
Yeah, it tips the scale of what was good versus what wasn't. For me, I met this human once who said, I was like, oh, my ideal would be have a live-in masseuse so I could have a massage every night. And he was like, but would you really appreciate it then? And I'm like, okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
So massage 2 or 3 times a week, right? Best case scenario. Would I appreciate it? I don't know. Let's see. I'll try that strategy and then find out.
You know, I think this is a great segue into the routines part. That's where we wanted to go to, right? That was our segue, right?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, anyway.
Segue happening.
So going on with this 5 a.m. 30-day challenge that I did. It was really hard to start, and then I started to feel and see the benefits of doing the 5 a.m. challenge. You know, as soon as I was up, I was already way more productive. The hardest part is the getting up part, okay? As long as you take those tiny little steps, don't think about, 5 a.m. run, don't need to go so far. It's more of a case of, okay, I'm up, now I need to put my joggers on, I need to put my trainers on, I need to wash my face, brush my teeth. Like, you just take each step as it comes, and then you're up and you're ready, and now it's like, okay, I'll just go for that walk that ends up being a run. And it was meant to be just a mile run, and a lot of times I would do 3 to 5 mile run just because I was out and feeling great. And then I'd come home, and then I'm like, I might as well do some sit-ups whilst I'm here. Do some push-ups here. Okay, now I need to get to my emails. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden I've had a workout, I've got up really early, I'm already tackled the emails that I needed to get to before new emails come. My phone hasn't gone, so you know, I haven't had any distractions from anywhere. I've started the project that I already had in mind, and then the day starts and people start waking up, and I'm in a great mood because I've set myself up for success for the rest of the day, and I feel great. And I did that, and these are the knock-on effects that I found. Then it came to the end of the 30 days. I was like, this is a lifestyle now. This is what I'm going to do. And I truly believed that. And I thought, okay, I'll just take a couple of days off, like when I finished. And in those couple of days, I would do it every now and then, the 5 a.m. And then the 5 a.m. wasn't so rigid. It wasn't always 5 a.m. because it was really hard to get that nighttime routine down, which I never got down. And because of that, it was this. And then, you know, you just roll on with a whole bunch of
You were like
excuses.
that mouse that went back to the original maze.
Yeah, and the thing is that I now, it's been a month or so since probably I've done it religiously. I do it every now and then, but if I'm honest with myself, it's not where I want to be, because I've realized that I got myself, and just by trying something new, by the way, the 5 a.m. thing, I never thought that was something. I just was in a rut. I needed something drastic to get me out of it, and that's why I did it. And then by doing that, I felt what it's like to feel up here. And that's what I'm saying, like now I'm probably here, sometimes I go here, and it makes you appreciate, by going back down, what it felt like to be up there. And now I'm in a better position to be like, no, this really is a lifestyle. This really is a way that I need to get myself back up there, because I'm not as focused, I'm not as, like, all of these things that I was doing back then and how happy I was. I'd have people be like, Jade, this is, in fact, you said it. You're right, this is the happiest I've ever seen you. And I will put that a lot on that 5 a.m. wake up time and getting so much done before the day has started.
Did you feel like it helped your confidence? Was that part of it? Or?
That's a huge part of it, Jess, actually. Thank you for bringing that, because I've been so successful in the morning, nothing really affected me by people's opinions and stuff, because I already felt fantastic inside. I knew that I'd literally done so much to take care of myself and felt disciplined and good, that now I was like, go into a room and start a conversation with anybody, be in front of a group of people and start talking. Like, that is huge for me, because I don't, like, this right now is out of my comfort zone. Knowing that there's a camera in front of me, I started to relax a little bit, but it's taken some time. And then to be in front of a group of people talking, I mean, that scares the hell out of me, but I felt confident enough in myself that nothing's gonna happen. Like, what's the worst that can happen? People are gonna laugh at me? Great, now I've entertained people.
Okay, so without getting too deep with it, apply the onion to it, because you've said that there's all these benefits from it, but you haven't gone, right, this is now me, right? This isn't now unconscious habit you are doing. It's still a conscious, I'm going to get up and do it, right? This is where I said about the onion. are you prepared to peel back and then go, why have I got the benefits from this, albeit confidence or whatever, and understand what is at the root of that this dopamine is better than that dopamine, because then you can then get to that point where this is now not me doing it consciously, this is me unconsciously doing it. For example, if I open the fridge and there is a non-alcoholic beer and alcoholic beer, I will reach for the non-alcoholic beer now. I'm not at a conscious, it's not a conscious decision, it's very much an unconscious, I know how that will make me feel, I know what the knock-on effects of this is, and that's not to say I won't ever have one, but I know that, for example, yesterday I had a day at the pool with some girls, right? And then it went to, they were all going back, and I went, right, I'm going home. I unconsciously now make these decisions, right? Because I was prepared to look myself in the mirror, work with coaches and mentors and say, okay, what is it you don't like about yourself? Why are you doing them? How did you get to that place? How are we going to solve it? And I think that alcohol is always the easiest one to talk about, because I think loads of us have had the experience. It'd be interesting to have this conversation with someone that's never drank, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
I would say that because I have had these conversations with people who never drank, many times they'd be like, I'm so glad I haven't, because I have such an addictive personality with chocolate or with sweets. So even though maybe the substance wasn't what the consumption was, it's still the pull that something may have on you. So I think that people can still relate regardless, because nobody is perfect and they've done every single thing from the time they were born correctly. Like, people are gonna know what binge eating feels like, or lack of sleep feels like, or flipping their lid, like getting too upset too quickly, or reacting to family members, or this type of thing. Like,
do you think 30 days? Sorry, do you think 30 days wasn't long enough?
Absolutely, and there are a lot of theories out there, let's say different days. You know, some people do say 30 days is enough. Some people do say, and research and everything shows that actually it just depends on the person and how long it's going to take you to create that habit. I think it's a constant thing. You know, I think for some people there will be certain habits that will be constantly something you have to be mindful about. I think with the 5 a.m. I have to constantly be mindful about it. I don't think it's just going to end up being a habit that, oh yeah, that's, unless I get better at going to bed earlier and then my body will naturally wake up at 5 a.m. That's the ultimate goal for me.
And Robin Sharma has the 66 days. It was a study done by, I'm not going to say the university correctly, but it was like University of London or London University of something, where they found on average, with of course outliers, where it took some people into 200 days and some people picked up a habit immediately.
And some never did.
And some never did. But the average was 66 days. So he breaks it down like the first 22 days are hard. That's your body relearning everything. Everything that you're doing is painful, but you have to have like the big vision in mind, right? The second 22 days are messy. So this is when it's like you could go back, you could revert, but it's starting to get easier. You see the positive benefits, but it's still not easy. And then the last 22 days up till 66 is when you start to kind of get into more of a flow. You've been doing it long enough now, you can see the benefits, your identity is almost changing in a way around yourself, being somebody who, I wake up at 5 a.m., not I'm somebody who, I'm struggling still to get into this new lifestyle. And then roughly around 66 days, again, not fixating on the exact number, you start to just get into a routine where it becomes your flow and your jam, and 100 days, 200 days into it, as long as you stick with what you've already been doing, it just becomes easy, it's automated, it's become a habit, you're not thinking. Yeah.
So how much is the power of the why?
But wait, huge. But I love the analogy that went with this, because I'm all about visuals. So imagine you are building a house and you're rebuilding a house, like you're going in, it's sort of rubbish, and you have to remodel it. And to begin with, for the first 22 days, it's hard. It's really hard to start, right? Because you have to break down walls, and it's not easy. You're like, oh, I really want to give up. And then you get to the next part of the remodeling of this house, and it's hard and it's messy because you have dust everywhere. There's nails and everything everywhere. It's ugly. It's just not where you want it to be, and it feels like there's not an end in sight. And then the inner sight comes together and the house is starting to get together and you're starting to see, you know, the benefits of all the hard work that you've put in, and you're starting to feel a certain way about the house. And then after that, it's just a case of maintaining the house, which is a lot easier than starting from ground zero.
But this is why I always say about the onion, right? Using a visual. If you're willing to get to the core, you could find out the why. Rather than trying to pick the curtains for the house, you're happy to work on the foundations. Whereas the outside layer of the onion is just going, yeah, I'm gonna get a new doormat. You know, like that's, and we see that all the time in gyms, and we see it all the time with coaching, like people want that quick fix.
True.
Whereas the deeper you get with it, and the more you can understand why you are thinking that, and the more you can understand the exact, there's reframing, for example, as a whole model, right? I always use the film Drop Dead Fred.
Love it.
Right.
Love that
Oh
film.
no, I haven't seen it.
Oh my god.
Right. So there's a scene in the film where
We're watching that.
To-do list. Got it.
she, I won't give away the rest of the film, but she basically
You better give
finds her younger self and untangles her from a bed. And everything else in the film is so about what happened to this woman as a child, right? That's the root of the onion. So whatever else she did, including medication, is irrelevant. It's not going to work. Or it might work for a set amount of time, depending on the environment. But then, what happens when that environment ain't there? You know, look at relationships. I find it so interesting that couples, once a partner dies, especially with older people that have spent longer with each other, how soon after that second person often passes away. And whether that is because their routine is completely gone, that person was their personality, or they've just held on to that, and all of a sudden, you almost die of heartbreak.
Mm-hmm. Or you often see this where people retire and within the year they've died.
They've lost their purpose.
They've lost their purpose, lost their why, their reason, and so I don't know what their correlation is there, but you know,
depression, not
Yeah, so
reaching
that one's, there's a lot of research combining retirement and injury in sport. Again, going back to sport, people they have this persona of who they are. So, for example, a 9-to-5 office worker whose all their social group is work, their whole friend group is work, their routine is based on work, what time they eat is based on work, what time they might train is based on work, how much physical activity they based on work. All of a sudden, that all ends. They have no personality, no routine, no structure. We see in sport now, pretty much, I don't know what it's like in basketball, I'm sure it's the same though, especially in rugby, from a young age now, if you're at a pro club, they encourage you to, and most clubs now help you with either an education piece or a business venture to do later on in life, right? And a lot of the time that's based on now who's going to sponsor that club, and they build a relationship that way. Because we know when a footballer, rugby player has retired, but they have woken up every single morning, looked at their phone, and they're told what room to go in, what kit to wear, here's this to eat, here's that to eat. What happens when you have to then do that yourself?
yeah.
So they are consciously now saying, hey, this ain't your life forever.
I felt like I had that experience going from high school into college because I didn't go and play sports in university, but I had played 3 sports, 4 sports, year round, multiple sports every season for pretty much most of my life, all of my high school experience, and then I went to college and I was like, now what?
freedom.
You know, freedom, but what does freedom look like? Freedom looks like I go to class, I think, on time.
Sometimes.
Like, my hallmate, okay, one of my best friends, we would like open the door and be like, we're going to class? Like, we'd weigh it out as if it were an option.
Yeah.
That younger version of myself, she just like got up, found structure, known that that's what she needed, gotten into teams, done, but I didn't know that.
And it
No
goes
one
back to
knows.
the discipline.
Nobody told me that, so.
There's a real common video that's viral of a military person giving a speech to a bunch of students at their graduation, and he's telling them to make the bed in the morning. He's like, the moment you can tell yourself, I'm going to do this in the morning, and you do it, okay, now we're talking. Now we're seeing what we can do with that discipline. There's also a book called Eat the Frog.
Yeah.
You know, do the worst thing first, and then you know it. Which again, that works for some people. I I use the example with people of what's the worst case scenario and what would you do? Okay, so here's the worst case scenario and here's what you would do. No matter what happens to you, it's not going to be as bad as that.
Mhm.
And also, if that happens, you already have a solution for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
I am.
totally.
Yeah, James Smith and Bartlett were just talking about that on the podcast.
I think the flip side of that is a lot of people, especially in a personal relationship and friends thing, it can sometimes have the knock-on effect. And this is something I've had to learn with like relationships that haven't worked out, both friends and, you know, partners as such. I'm very solution focused, like, but it almost becomes toxic positivity as such, if that's the term, right? Where you'll just be talking and I'll just give you a solution. And as I've gotten older and as I've spent more time with people, I think moving in with someone, I learned this as well. I often get to a point where I'm then asking that person, okay, what do you need from me right now? There's a second side to this. Do you just want to vent? Or do you want someone that's going to reply and give you solutions, right? The flip side to that is, I have learned I am not someone you can just vent to. I like to give a solution. If you are just going to vent to me,
Find a different friend. I'm not your friend
but
for that.
again, I think that also comes with the relationship of being more open and confident in my own ability and who I want to be, rather than trying to be this all singing, all dancing people pleaser. You know, like, which in the past I have been. Like, I'd adapt, and I still adapt, especially like, you know, in coaching sport, you adapt to your environment to try and get the best out of it, but not at a detriment to me.
But what's your reason for wanting to give solutions to somebody that might need to?
Because I know the
realize
positive effect it
themselves?
had on me.
But do you think that that's the case for them? Sometimes
No, but that's
having a
what I've had to
sounding
learn.
board, somebody just wants a sounding board.
Yeah,
work
and
it out
someone
yourself.
gave me the example of taste in food. It don't matter what for example, I had a black coffee with a sweetener. You said you did not want a sweetener. So no matter how much I love a sweetener, I'm not going to push it on you.
And I was like, he loves that, so I'm gonna give it a try. And then I put in the plant milk, and it's disgusting.
Yeah. So
Worst coffee I've ever had, right there in that cup.
and it's just one of
But I
those.
was open.
Yeah, you realise that it's not for everyone. You know,
Yeah.
like, and that's okay.
I love the synergy right now.
Was it the sweetener or was it the milk?
It was, I don't know. Because I didn't
Combination.
try them. Yeah, I would never use that again. I'm pretty sure it's the milk. Don't tell Rachel.
Why didn't you use the almond milk?
Because I don't like almond milk,
Yeah.
and there was a new milk, so I thought,
You had
oh, I'll
soy
try
milk?
this.
There's too many milks.
No, it was plant something.
Oh.
I don't even know. I didn't look in detail.
There's way too many milks now.
And so I tried that.
So
But I
just
was just
going-
grateful for the coffee.
Going back to the.
Well, you know.
I mean.
I have actually one of them. Going back to the onion and peeling the emotions. For some people, becoming disciplined and working on themselves in maybe more of a physical way can help them deal with their emotions, which will then help them deal with what's underneath. I know from me myself, I know that there are a lot of onions that I need to peel back, but I need to get myself into a certain mental mind and capacity to be able to deal with that. And by becoming more disciplined and doing the things that I know are good for me and make me feel a certain way and make me a lot more productive, it's going to help me with these underlying issues that I need to confront.
Also, behavior change. So there's a behavior change model that talks about that this is what it is. It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, planning, action, and maintenance. And essentially, pre-contemplation is you don't know you need to change, you don't know you have a problem. Contemplation, you're like, all right, I know I have a problem, I know there needs to be some adjustment, but I don't know if I'm quite ready. Planning is, okay, I need to make this change. I'm going to start learning, listening to podcasts, reading books, doing what I need to, studying what other successful people are doing, and then action, actually taking action. And it is once the action becomes a habit or a lifestyle and it becomes something that you do, then you shift into the completion of this behavior change into maintenance. Most people oscillate between maintenance and action and planning. So this is that like, oh, tried it, kind of yo-yo. But actual behavior change happens when you're maintaining whatever that behavior is. You're waking up every day for 5 a.m. and you've been doing it for 4 years without fault. You're in the maintenance of that behavior, right? And so understanding that, like if you're in a, I know I need to do this, and you're doing your planning, you're understanding, you're researching, you're getting your brain on board with what then could be difficult in taking action, or what you deem difficult into taking action, then once that action is taken, all it needs is like nurturing.
But I think
Like
that's
a plant with water.
okay. So to use the plant example, right?
Mhm.
And this is where I think I'm a little bit more selective with who I work with as a coach now because of this, right? A tree understands it needs sunlight, right, and takes water from the ground, and it will produce whatever it's producing.
Peaches
Call it peaches, right?
for this scenario.
But humans have now gone,
Love a peach.
no, I need to be optimal. I need to find out what they were doing and take what they were doing and apply it to my life, right? And this is where I'm just saying
You're saying
about
an apple tree, then trying to see what a peach tree is doing.
why are we seeking this optimal version of ourselves, right? And again, I'm going to question you on that, why you've decided that Project Ultimate Life is so important to both of you two. We are searching for this optimal version of ourselves, right? The tree isn't. The tree is just living a happy existence.
No, she's constantly growing and
But
adapting.
by doing the same things though, taking in the sunlight, taking in the water, the tree isn't going, oh, what's happening over there?
Yeah,
Let me
but
try that.
the tree is physically rooted. The tree in North America can't see what the trees are doing over in Southeast Asia. If they did, there could be some jealousy.
But you
Because
know that they're very
things-
smart. They have like these communication networks.
Yeah, 100 exactly.
Underneath,
But that's
and
what I'm
they-
saying.
They
Why?
can also, sorry, I was just finished this thought. They can also give, if there's like a drought or something, they can either be selfish and give themselves all that water, or they will designate where the water is going to go. And then they're learning and then adapting to their environment and situation. So they're always becoming their optimal. Always.
Okay, take animals in the wild, right? Animals go about their routine in the wild and they eat the same thing every single day. We're constantly looking at different ways. We're constantly finding new milks to put in our fridge, right? Like, why humans have gone this way?
Well, it's because the brain. So this comes down to like there's that scenario of like two ducks. They are in a pond and they squabble, and moments later they just kind of get on with it because they've forgotten. They don't hold on to things, and they just like gotten on with it. Like they're now thinking, oh, like I don't even know what they're thinking. Where are we gonna eat next? Like where are we gonna go? And they just like join the piece. They're not holding on to things like grudges or pain from the past or guilt or shame. They don't maybe have that capacity in their brain, which I think influences a lot of what we do.
We'd live a happier life.
We would live such a happier life. But then we wouldn't be humans.
But that's what I'm saying. I say this to every single person I meet, right? And this isn't me saying it to get a reaction. This is genuinely my belief. If I wake up in the morning and I can take a big breath and I'm alive, I'm good. You know, you want to talk about like eat the frog? The hardest thing, that how many people die every night, right? That's a horrible thought, but how many people don't wake up? The moment I wake up in the morning and I open my eyes and I can breathe, man, I'm good.
I mean, that's very nice to have that
But
thought. No, it is. It's really like, oh wow, yeah, I'm alive today. And I think it's fantastic if we all think of that. However, try not to use but, as humans, we are always searching for more. Like that's the whole point of our brain capabilities, is to always search and see what else.
But how much of
there
that is causing the negative that we're now trying to get out of, is what I'm saying. So for example, if you wake up in the morning, right, and you are grateful for your breath, but also we have the ability to see how many blind people are in the world, hearing, being able to walk with both our legs. You know, like these basic human levels, the hierarchy philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once my basic level of needs are met, everything else from there that may take me higher also has the opposite of going, now I'm also could be here and I'm searching for that dopamine. I genuinely am not at the most ideal financial situation or physical rooted in the ground situation because of my visa process. But genuinely, hand on heart, I'm happy because everything else in my life that I may not be optimal, I can change, and I'm happy with that. Right? Like I also think that's why I'm a coach, because I am at that point. I am at that point where I can share this information and have a positive effect on people. Like, if I was to walk out of this flat today, right, and die, have I had more of a positive effect on people than negative? Is my karma in a good place? I like to think it is now. It may not have been in the past, but I like to think that that's where I'm at, right? I'm happy with that.
It's great how well you practice gratitude. I think that's one thing that we could all become better at, practicing gratitude. What are we grateful for? Every morning we wake up, what are we grateful for? And then that keeps us grounded for the rest of the day.
But I think that the reason why I bring this up is I think that that is the reason why when a routine I try to put in doesn't work, I'm okay with it. Or when for example, if I want to lose weight, right? If I want to look a different way, I know how to do it, so I'm going to do it. If I don't do that, I'm actually okay with it because it's not part of my bottom layer of am I breathing, can I walk, can I listen, honestly, I don't know how I'd react, but if you chop my arm off today, I'd probably want to do a Paralympic sport. You know, like I would be grateful for the opportunity that I still then had, you know, like. And I just think that when we talk about like morning routines and this search for optimizing, I do think there's got to be this point of, okay, yes, that is fantastic, but what about everything else under? We see it with goal setting in sport, right? How many people, after they've won a world title, the next day they're at their lowest? Authors say the same thing. Authors say exactly the same thing. What happens when everything you've worked up to the next day? I remember having a conversation with you, right, and I really didn't want to kill your vibe on when you were doing 5am, but I did say to you, what about on day 31? Because if you're not prepared for what's going to happen afterwards, what's the goal? And I think as a coach, there's a business model there which is really important of how to change people's goals to keep you relevant in their life. Also accepting you may have an end date with that person. So there's plenty of clients. I've got a client at the moment, right, who I'm helping to build a routine. He's a qualified PT. He does not need me in terms of need, right? Like everything I'm doing with him is very basic, very entry level. Okay, I might know a little bit more on the certain injuries he's had and how to help him. But my whole purpose with him is I will get you to a point where this is your life, and because you want that. So I'm going to help you with that. So I've put an end date on it. Whereas I have other people that online clients, for example, that I have had for months upon end, because we just keep changing the goal. They're happy with it, I'm happy with it. So I think it's very important to go, okay, what is optimization? Why do I think that is optimal as well? The example of 5am, right? I like going to bed early because I know nothing productive happened in my life. I also had a psychology teacher who was a night owl. She worked better past midnight. She'd still get up in the morning and teach us lectures. And I was like, how? And she always said, this is how I just work better. Okay, maybe
that's
she has
an anomaly.
Yeah, but it's still someone though, isn't it?
But also this point, it's not building a routine that works for the individual and that person is what's important, and understanding what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I would say that what works for me, I am a much better, stronger, fitter, emotionally great when I have got up at that 5am. And when you say, I did say to you, like, what happens at day 31? At day 31, I was like, I gave myself a bit of a rest. I went to bed late, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself the sleep that I need. And then I understand that the sleep is so important for me, and what do I need to do is build a better night routine. What has happened from then till now? A whole learning journey experience. And you could say that I went back down, but I know how to get back up there because I've tried it up there and I liked it up there. So I know the steps I need to take to get back up there. I also know what it's like to be down here, and whilst it doesn't feel great to be down here, I've been here and I understand what it's like to be down here. I'm not afraid to be down here anymore. It's like when you start businesses and stuff, I'll take certain risks in business because I know what it's like to have nothing, and I was great with nothing. So, you know, as long as you understand where you were, where you are, where you're going to get, what you're aspiring to, and when you're up there, knowing how you got up there. When people say things like, oh, you know, you learn from all your failures and that's how you become so successful, also you learn a hell of a lot more from your successes.
Both.
You know,
Okay,
like you learn what not to do when you fail. You learn what to do when you're successful.
To bring it back to the original point of this conversation with morning routines in general, nighttime routine. Question for both of you: what would you say to a shift worker?
A shift worker.
So somebody who works 2 different blotches of the day.
Uh,
Does it
well,
impact
you can-
in this scenario? Does the shift worker have a chunk that they can sleep?
I'll give you 2 scenarios.
Okay.
Someone who works nights continuously, so circadian rhythm is the complete opposite of what the world has given them.
I've been there.
And how hard it is to find optimal, let alone any routine in that, right? Then someone who shift changes, and yet we live in Qatar where this is a genuine example, right? The life they're living now financially is to support them and their families back home. They're in a worse situation. How can we help people like that?
Knowing the why, knowing that everything in life is temporary, and so that when you do get up each day, you know that what you're doing for today is meant to help tomorrow. So mindset would be one of the spaces to start with.
What would you do about routine though?
Again, it just kind of depends on what if you can get in the solid chunk of sleep, whether it is in the evening or night or morning. Like one of my best friends, she's a nurse, so she works night hours. So there's like, you lose some days in that because you try to shift over to the other, but if you are regularly a night worker and you have that ability to go home, maybe wind down for 2 hours, do like a meditation, a stretch, something, anything to kind of bring you to a place where you can go to sleep so you can actually get up after a period of say 7 hours to do something productive with your life that you want to do, that's in line with future goals, that can set your future self up for utilizing this experience for what it is, so that way in the future you can then do that. Like when I was preparing to go to Germany for the first time, I was doing AmeriCorps full time during the days, actually 45 hours a week because it was a shortened contract, and I was working and serving in a restaurant full time. So I would work all day and then I would hit all the evening shifts except for a Thursday evening and either a morning Sunday or an evening Sunday. And I was able to do that because I recognized that everything in life is temporary and that was an opportunity. And that was going to be able to set me up to be able to then go to the next goal and experience, which was to move to Germany. I didn't have much of a plan. I had a couple $1,000s in my bank account. And then when I got to Germany, after about a month, I knew I had 90 days or something to be able to get what I needed. I just started getting out there. But during that previous chapter, I got a school garden certificate, I got my English language arts endorsement on my teaching license, and I got my TESOL license. So in addition to doing all of that full time. So the chapter that you're in, routine, habit, all of this is very important, setting yourself up, etc. But also being mindful of what is the next chapter that you're trying to prepare yourself for. Because then that makes everything that you're doing now, the pain, seem just that much less painful because it was for purpose, because this is setting me up for then. What am I doing now to set myself up next?
So goal setting.
Yeah, so goal setting and just taking action steps. You know, if you don't want your current reality to be your current reality forever, then what can you do in those hours that you're not sleeping that's going to support maybe creating passive income, creating an additional online business, finding extra work that's available, etc.
I would highly recommend, and again, this is a recommendation I give on myself, right? Keep looking into the research of how support workers help people with mental health issues, addictions, depression, because what I've realised within myself,
Support workers?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Nurses.
counsellors, nurses, anyone in that field. I am very good at working with either entrepreneurs, freelancers, or high level athletes, because they have more time available to them and they're already in a certain mind frame. So, for example, when you work with an elite level athlete who their only responsibility is to turn up. Okay, what we're going to do in this hour session or hour and a half session, right? Because nothing else in their life is that important to make them have the income, all the bills are paid or food's going to be on the table. This is their job. I'm very good at working with them type of people. And again, this is a kind of journey of a PT, and any other trainers will tell you this, right? You go through stages of your life working with different types of people. Going back to, I went through a stage of working with a lot of mums, especially when I was in Wimbledon, right? The advice I was giving them then is very different. Everything we talk about in terms of optimizing, 9 times out of 10 works better for someone that is already in a pretty decent position in life.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who doesn't have to work 3 jobs because they're trying to make rent, or the worker who's working a night shift because they're sending money back home. We're very good at giving people advice that are that higher end, and I just think there's a lot to be learned still from the rest as such. And I just think that, especially with what you guys are doing with workshops and stuff, and especially with younger girls, it's going to be, or young boys as well for that matter, it's very important to have a look at what else is being said to other people, because a lot of people, it is easier said than done, whether it is the mother in the morning or whether that is someone with an addiction, whether that is someone that is clinically depressed.
Someone with an addiction is probably going to benefit a lot by their own set routines.
No, agreed. But are they going to do it? How do you get them there?
Even if they're not addicted to something, it's hard to get there.
No, that's what I'm saying. I always say this to PTs. How hard was it to get the nighttime routine that we're going to help with the morning routine, as someone who's educated on it, right? So now imagine you're trying to give that advice to someone else who hasn't got the personal experience of doing it. You're trying to, like we said earlier, this person has got their own experiences that is either positively reinforced or negatively reinforced. I always use the example of relationships. Relationships I've been exposed to, I have negative context with them. So whenever I get into a relationship myself, be it friend or personal, it's then, I see this, it's negative. I know I'm doing that. And I still find it so hard to change that. So when you're working with someone that hasn't had that experience, just be very mindful. As I said, I'm coming at a point with you where I have coached for the last 20 years of my life, be it football, rugby, gym, management, leadership, sales, you name it, right? I've coached for 20 years, and I'm giving my, opinion on what I would recommend. Go and find research into how people are being helped outside of that top 5%, top 1%. Because as I said, it's almost easier. We all live a life where, in essence, yes, we have responsibilities, but there are responsibilities. There are businesses. If I get up in the morning and work or not, it's going to impact me. If I make that phone call, it's impacting me. We're not in traditional employee jobs, right? So that's a very different one.
I once was.
No, I agreed. I was too.
Not too long ago. And I, to set myself up for this reality, found multiple ways to be able to generate income, and educated myself in investments, investing, finances, all throughout that journey since 2016. Literally, when my friend bought the book Rich Dad Poor Dad for me in Germany, it was a life changer, and that launched this consumption of everything finance, because I didn't know it. As a health teacher, PE teacher, community organizer, where would I have ever gotten that kind of information?
I'll show you my copy of the book. Someone has signed and given to me as a present as well.
Yeah, see? And then, but from that point, then it became, okay, how can I do that? Okay, what skills do I have? Okay, then if you know it, you naturally start manifesting these opportunities into your reality, because it comes up in conversation and someone says, oh great, I have kids, come do a birthday party for them. I show up, I'll do a birthday party, they like it, word of mouth. Things grow when you know kind of your directive of
what are you going to do with the people that don't want it?
Then, we do reap what we sow. There is that reality. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
And I think that there's a big part of coaching that you need to really accept that as well.
Yeah.
And it's it's a hard one. If I look at every single person I've ever coached in anything, let alone sport or gym, right? Just any sort of conversation, I have to accept that not everyone is going to take the information and roll with it.
Well, I think it's exactly the same. Like the idea that you can't save everyone. If someone genuinely doesn't want to help themselves, then they're probably not the right person for me to want to work with. Hopefully, the content that we create, you know, the workshops that we put on, we can contribute something, at least plant seeds, you know, that can be watered by other sources. I mean, we do live in this, you know, social media of my algorithms picking up on wellness, like, you know, as long as you're looking at the right things, then you're gonna be being exposed. If you're not, again, then that becomes the personal, individual responsibility to say, well, what do I really want, and then find their way into it. But I don't feel, I think I share your kind of experience with, if the right people will find us.
Yeah.
You know, the right people that we can all.
No, listen, I massively agree. I think that if I shout pink elephant riding a bicycle, there's only one thing everyone thinks of, right? Like wherever you put your focus and energy, you will attract.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. When I got a red car, all I could see were red cars everywhere.
And when I saw I see red Jeeps all the time now because of your Jeep.
Honestly, I never really saw a red Jeep before. I was like, oh, these are red, and all I see were red Jeeps.
Tony Robbins actually does that as one of his first opening things in one of his workshops. He gets everyone to shut their eyes, and he just keeps saying, picture something blue, 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 picture the sky being blue, this, that, and the other. He's like, open your eyes, find something yellow, and no one can do it. Everyone's like, what? And then he does the opposite, and he's like, yellow, 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 open and find yellow. And it's just because you have just put that into your head.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's
Something as simple as that, and that's, as I said, it's a real interesting one. But as I said, especially as a coach, who I do this for a living now, right? You realise who also you want to work with, because you appreciate the effect, the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
We're coaching environment, right? We are coaching to make sure you put yourself with the people that you want to be influenced by.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that about work. I don't want to work with people that also don't want to work,
Right.
because I'm not getting joy. Oh, okay, there might be money at the end of it, but the money doesn't mean as much to me as
The
result.
fulfillment of helping someone succeed. Yeah, 100%.
which is as I said, just a real interesting one that I think that, especially because this project is new and what you're trying to achieve from it, I wanted to share these conversations with it.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I feel like we've covered a lot of really great content. I'm looking at our list over there. We can cover habit stacking. I think that's a whole nother kind of conversation. Are there any major takeaways that we want to send across as the message before we kind of close up? Or any sort of last thoughts? Anything besides obviously the benefits of morning routine?
I think the one thing I think we kept going back to, and this is the best version of yourself, or the best morning routine, or the most optimum person,
Or your ultimate life?
ultimate life, is dependent on where you are at that time, and that can change. And I just think people need to remember they need to allow themselves to understand that can and probably will change depending on circumstance as well. So
Yeah, there's a woman that I follow on YouTube, Vanessa Lau. She does everything about creating YouTube stuff, right? She said, when you're going to become a YouTuber and you're going to become, say, a podcaster, or you're going to become anything, don't compare yourselves to the Tony Robbins of the world.
Joe Rogan, who's done $1 million.
The Mel Robbins, these people who we aspire to be like, or find value in what they're doing, so want to do something similar. Like, if we don't have a date with destiny, with 20,000 people showing up, or I don't even know how many people join those, then we're still being successful. And I think that that's the same for everybody's ultimate version. If you're doing one really positive thing per day to help your future self, those little positive things will add up, right? If you put your first podcast out, that's better than no podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe I chose the wrong color. Next time I'll choose something different. But that doesn't negate this.
use as a learning opportunity.
Everything is just you build off of it until you suddenly built a mountain. Like my vision board this last time around literally was a foundation built because I finally got to the point where, I can read, I can write, I can have a lot of the essentials kind of put into place. And, where now it's, I have this much bigger vision, which is a mountain. that now this is the next climb. But without that foundation, the abilities to, I'll speak English, I know, going back to like the essential skills, but those basic foundational skills and the experience behind having been an employee, having had jobs, having learned what it means to be dependable, how to be, just all the essentials of life. Now you can move on to your next best thing. This 5-year vision board won't be the next 5-year vision board. It'll be something completely different, and that will just look like a faint memory of like, oh, what fun, the journey that what that was.
I would say one takeaway from my side is that whatever you start, it's going to be hard, and that's okay. It's meant to be hard. Not everything is going to be easy, and if it's hard, then the rewards are going to be bigger. The harder it is, the bigger the reward. So if being disciplined, or even if it's just something as a first goal, my first goal was to be able to wake up at 5 a.m. consistently every day. It wasn't easy to start with, okay? It's not going to be easy when you first start something new, but it will get easier as time goes by.
Absolutely. Okay.
Sweet.
Cool.
Thanks for the conversation.
Awesome. Should we get like a little
Thanks, Sana, for being
mouse
here
in the
for the
center?
conversation.
I mean, it's weird, but
It's not. I'm American.
And look, even look at the different. Okay.
skin tones.
Yeah. We're all just a little bit
Translucent.
Oh.